Every year, games rise and fall, but 2026? 2026 is different, because right now, some of the biggest names in gaming, games you probably played last month, are quietly bleeding out. We're not talking about small indie titles nobody heard of. We're talking about games with millions of players, massive budgets and hype that felt unbeatable. So today, we're counting down the top 5 games that are dying right now in 2026. These aren't dead yet, but the numbers are scary. Kicking off the list at number 5, Arc Raiders. If you were paying attention to gaming in late 2025, you know Arc Raiders was everywhere. It won Best Multiplayer at the Game Awards 2025. It peaked at nearly 482,000 concurrent players on Steam in November. It sold over 14 million copies. People were calling it the future of extraction shooters. Fast forward to April 2026, the 24-hour peak has dropped to around 90,000 players. That's nearly an 80% fall in just a few months. Now, to be fair, 90,000 players is still more than most games will ever dream of. Arc Raiders isn't dead, but here's the problem. The hardcore players are leaving because there's not enough endgame content. The casual players are leaving because the PvP balance feels unfair. And matchmaking keeps throwing new players into lobbies with people way ahead of them. It's a slow bleed. Embark Studios is trying to fix it with new maps and updates, but in live service gaming, once that momentum breaks, it's really hard to get it back. Arc Raiders is number 5 because it still has a chance, but the clock is ticking. Number 4 is one of the most painful stories on this entire list, Splitgate 2. The original Splitgate was beloved, a genius concept. Halo-style arena shooting combined with portals from the Portal games. Simple, fun, addictive. So when Splitgate 2 was announced, the community was hyped. Then June 6, 2025 arrived, and everything fell apart. The game launched with no ranked mode, which the whole community wanted. And get this, they had an $80 cosmetic bundle. $80 for cosmetics in a free game. Players were furious, and the numbers showed it immediately. Peak players on Steam hit 25,000 at launch, and within weeks dropped to under 2,000. That's a 93% collapse. But wait, it gets worse. The developers actually unlaunched the game. They pulled it back to beta, admitted they launched too early, laid off 45 employees, and shut down the original Splitgate 1 servers to save money. They basically killed the original game while the sequel was failing. They relaunched quietly in December 2025. By New Year's Day 2026, the game had 800 players on Steam. 800. Splitgate 2 is number 4 because honestly, it might already be too far gone. Alright, number 3, and I know what you're thinking, Fortnite? Really? Hear me out. For years, people have been saying Fortnite is dying, and for years they've been wrong. The game kept reinventing itself, kept pulling massive numbers, kept being the king of live service gaming. But 2026 feels different. In March 2026, Epic Games laid off over 1,000 employees. That's nearly 20% of the entire company. And the reason CEO Tim Sweeney gave? A downturn in engagement that started in 2025. Not a small dip, a downturn big enough to fire 1,000 people. At the same time, Epic shut down multiple Fortnite game modes. Rocket Racing is being shut down, Festival Battle Stage is gone. And 2 weeks before those layoffs, they raised V-Bucks prices. You now get 800 V-Bucks for your money instead of 1,000. The Battle Pass earns you less. Everything costs more. The game still has close to 900,000 daily players, so no, it's not dying tomorrow. But Chapter 7 hasn't come close to the highs of Chapter 5 or 6. The golden age of Fortnite, it feels like it's over. Fortnite is number 3 because for the first time in its history, the end actually feels possible. Number 2, Marvel Rivals, and this one genuinely hurts me to talk about. When Marvel Rivals launched in December 2024, it was an absolute phenomenon. 10 million players in 2 days, a Steam peak of over 644,000 concurrent players. It beat Apex Legends' all-time peak record. People were saying this was the Overwatch killer, the hero shooter to end all hero shooters. And then, it slowly started dying. By late 2025, the average daily players had dropped from over 300,000 to under 75,000. That's a drop of over 75% from its peak in just months. New heroes and seasons spiked the numbers temporarily, but even those spikes are getting smaller and smaller each time. Marvel Rivals had the greatest launch a hero shooter has ever had, and it's wasting it. That's why it's number 2. So what happened? A few things. First, ranked mode is burning people out. Players feel like they drop rank the moment they take a break. The grind feels punishing rather than rewarding. Second, the game's performance has actually gotten worse since launch. Players with high-end GPUs like the RTX 4090 are reporting frame drops and stuttering. That's embarrassing for a game at this level. And the number 1 game dying right now in 2026, and honestly it's not even close, Among Us. Now before you say Among Us has been dead for years, hear me out, because the story of Among Us is genuinely one of the most insane rises and falls in the entire history of gaming. This game came out in 2018. 3 people made it. For 2 whole years, almost nobody played it. The developers were actually planning to make Among Us 2 because they thought the first one was too old to save. Then COVID hit, lockdowns, people stuck at home. Streamers like Pokimane, XQC, Corpse Husband picked it up, and overnight, Among Us became a global phenomenon. We're talking 500 million players in a single month, 3.8 million concurrent players across all platforms at its peak. A Steam peak of 438,000 players in September 2020. The word sus entered the actual English language. Think about that. And now, on Steam today, around 5,700 concurrent players. That's 95% lower than its 2020 record. The cultural moment is completely gone. The streamers moved on. The memes dried up. And Innersloth, still a tiny team, simply couldn't pump out content fast enough to keep 500 million people entertained. The tragic part, Among Us is still alive on mobile with around 25 million monthly active users, so technically it's not dead. But compare that to 500 million, that's not a game. That's a graveyard with the lights still on. Among Us is number 1 because no game in history has fallen from a higher height. Nothing comes close. So there you have it. 5 massive games that are dying right now in 2026. Some of them might recover, some of them probably won't. But the lesson is always the same. In live service gaming, no game is safe, not even the kings. Drop a comment and tell me, which game do you think is actually going to survive? Like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.